2B2T is the oldest anarchy server in Minecraft, and for the past 10 years has taken the Minecraft community by storm, ever since the Camping Russia thrust the server into prominence with his famous video released all the way back in 2016. The server needs no further introduction, as I'm sure essentially all of you are aware of it, but what I'm certain the vast majority of you aren't aware of is that alongside all the recent drama regarding the server and its censorship and changes, the truth behind 2B2T and who owns the server or is actually running it is not quite as it seems. And despite claims from the server that Hausemaster, the 2B2T admin, is still running the show, the past few months details have gradually leaked displaying that the true owners might be someone else you never would have expected. To fully understand what's happened, we need to first go all the way back to 2014, before 2B2T was the household name it is today, and back when it was a server with a smaller tight-knit community. Up until that point, since the server began in late 2010, Hausemaster alongside a player named George Bush 420, the server's supposed founders, were the ones who were generally believed to have been running the server. Hausemaster specifically at this time was quite active in the community, often actually seen online the server, teleporting to players and even talking to them. But in mid-2014, a message appeared on the 2B2T website near the server's donation goal stating, "I don't want to run 2B2T anymore, I am tired of it and it is boring to me, and I don't want to spend any more hours fixing it when needed. I would rather just shut it down and move on forever." But more importantly was this message here posted on the 31st of July 2014. Hausemaster has left 2B2T forever and is no longer in charge. The server will continue like normal though and will be operated by an anonymous friend. A month later, this message was no longer visible, nor was the message regarding no longer wanting to run the server. Furthermore, the new owner never took up a new name either, continuing to refer to himself as Hausemaster. Anywho, following this message, players from the time reported that the tone of Hausemaster's emails drastically changed, and the email headers, which were in Swedish, where Hausemaster was originally reported to be from, changed to English. Here are some examples listed on the 2B2T wiki, where prior Hausemaster seems kind and cordial, while after he seems much more abrasive and direct, even mentioning he no longer goes by Hausemaster with an A, but Hausemaster with an O. From then on, it is commonly believed that George Bush 420 took over the server to where he gave certain players part of a group called Nerds Inc., of which he was friends with, that mind you had backdoored the server in the past, access to his operator account. This ultimately almost led to the server dying entirely. You've probably seen this video by FitMC talking about the whole situation already. Following this, to revive the server, George Bush 420 stopped communicating with players and letting them make plugins for the server, where sometime prior to mid-2016, Hausemaster would supposedly come back and take control of the server again. It is now commonly believed that Haus and George no longer are in direct contact with players as they once were, and run the server together again still to this day, although many players aren't convinced the original Hausemaster ever returned at all. In June of 2016, supposedly not long after Hausemaster returned to running the server, the Camping Russia would upload his now famous video playing on it, which catapulted 2B2T into the public eye, forever changing the course of the server's history. After this video, 2B2T was never the same again, and the rest of the server's story is history you all know. Now, for some additional context on the Camping Russia from the time, he also ran a popular Minecraft faction server called the Archon, with his friend and other server owner or administrator Curtis, who had filmed with and been in many videos with Russia before. Due to Russia giving 2B2T so much publicity, the server was overwhelmed with new players, of which it simply did not have enough slots to hold. Alongside that, veteran players of the server who joined it prior to Russia's invasion were frustrated that they could no longer join the server. So not long after Russia joined and began his series of 2B2T videos, a queue was implemented to 2B2T. The queue was initially split into 3 groups. The first group being players who didn't pay, who would have to join the queue. The second was priority queue, which is where players could pay $20 monthly to skip ahead and get into the server much quicker. And then the third queue was veteran queue, where players who joined the server prior to Russia would essentially get priority queue for free without paying. What's lesser known about the 2B2T queue though, is that it was added with not only help from Russia, but also Curtis, who hosted the queue server for Haus. In fact, the queue was actually Russia and Curtis's idea, after Russia supposedly offered to buy 2B2T off of Hausemaster, to which Hausemaster supposedly declined. The source of this is Russia himself, who mentioned as such in this video he released in August of 2016, 2 months after his series on the server began, as well as a lot of other interesting information.
So Kurt, obviously I'm starting off with you today, because you and I are kind of the ones involved, but it's me, like this is all on me. Kurt's just here. He won't be talking too much, but if he has anything to bring up, Kurt, feel free to interrupt me, all right?
Alright, man.
Okay, so first thing I'll say right away, I do not own 2B2T. However, I do have, I am involved with 2B2T. I made an offer to buy 2B2T, the server, close to when we started recording. So I emailed House and I said, you know, I didn't know it was House at the time. I just emailed the contact email on 2B and I said, hey man, like, is there anything I can do to get myself and Mitch either whitelisted or a way to speed up the queue? So we ended up talking more, and later on I had offered to buy 2B2T from him, and he said no. But at the same time at saying no, he came up with the veteran queue. That was his idea. And then we wanted to partner up. I wanted to partner up with him in this, and then that's when I suggested the premium queue. Kurt has access to the premium queue. We created the premium queue. We do not have access to the main server. When I say we don't own 2B2T, it's because Kurt and I, you and I literally don't have access to the main server. That's all on House. House still owns the server. But we created the premium queue. And yes, there was a chance to make some money there. And again, that was not the main reason. We bought DDoS protection. We obviously created the queue plugin. We covered the cost of the server machines. That was all coming out of my pocket.
Now, there were two key takeaways and potential issues with Russia and Curtis being involved with and owning the queue. First of all, Russia and Curtis's control over the queue had resulted in quite some drama already when a well-known player from the time named Taroga Dude had his veteran queue removed due to him making a video about how another YouTuber Russia was friends with named Landon MC had his Skype account hacked by 2B2T players who told him not to play on the server.
The reason I took this guy out and made this quick decision to take him out of the vet queue is not because he was talking smack to me. If you didn't know, my buddy Landon MC, his Skype was hacked, alright? So his Skype was hacked and his Minecraft account. The guy jumped on Landon's Skype account and he messaged me right away, if you do not leave our server 2B2T, you and your friends will continue to be hacked. So I thought, hey, how can we make this guy's life suck? And I thought, let's take him off the veteran queue. I'm sorry. I'm seriously sorry for what I did for taking him off the queue. 2B2T, the reason it's so good is because of the idea of anarchy, right? Anything is allowed. Even hacking YouTubers is allowed. I understand that. So I messed up. And I vow from here on out, and Curtis is in here with me. Curtis, you and I will never, ever remove someone from the veteran queue ever again.
Russia would later apologize and walk back his decision after major backlash from the 2B2T community, but players were not happy that Russia and Curtis now had a degree of control over who could and couldn't reliably play on 2B2T, which always had the culture of being an anarchy server with no rules where anything goes. The other issue players had was that Russia and Curtis were getting a cut of the money from the paid queue, which led players to accuse Russia of being money hungry, greedy, and making the server worse for players just so he could get money from it. But realistically, these claims were weak, with the funds from the server mostly going towards actually maintaining it.
We pay the server bill, we pay the DDoS protection, we make sure that we're paying for stuff with the premium queue money. The cut that I get, the rest that's left over, I am not in the 2B2T thing here for the money. I'm here to have control, and I want security for my series and for this server. That's why I wanted it. That's why I offered to buy it, and that's why now I have a part of it. Not really part ownership, but part of the revenue, and I actually have a say in decisions that are made. Not the final say, but at least a say.
Regardless, the most important takeaway from this video is that Russia made it abundantly clear that House had declined his offer to purchase the server, and he in no way had control or ownership over the actual server at all. But players were still not happy with the small amount of control he now had over the queue. Years later, Hausemaster would regain full control of the queue server according to the 2B2T wiki, and Russia seemingly disappeared from the server entirely. Now, from here on, I want to make it clear that everything that follows is not 100% proven. There is merely a good degree of evidence I will present to you and explain, which you can interpret however you wish. Before that though, if you are enjoying this video, be sure to subscribe. We are very close to 900k subs now, no pressure of course. So anyways, Russia eventually stopped making videos playing on 2B2T, and we are now into the later 2010s. But the issues with 2B2T didn't magically disappear with Russia either. Players regularly were frustrated with the state of the server and how it didn't update to 1.13 and beyond, being stuck on 1.12.2, with many questioning what the $20 a month they were paying was actually going towards. Alongside that, Hausemaster's behavior, or whoever was in control of the server and the 2B2T subreddit, became noticeably erratic, with posts criticizing the server regularly being deleted and censored, a whole bunch of subreddit mods being banned, which even led to the creation of the alternative 2B2T uncensored subreddit, which is still active years later today, and also many many posts and promises from House himself about future updates of the server and whatnot being deleted after he posted them. Many longtime players would complain about these issues and supposedly quit the server over it, and even big 2b2t YouTubers like Saucy1 would criticize elements of the server like its queue. The queue especially became a very big point of contention, with players supposedly calculating the server was making tens of thousands of dollars a month, yet very little of that money seemed to be going into improving the server's many issues from the time or updating it to modern versions beyond 1.12. Regardless, the server continued on and changed again in August 2023. In August 2023, 2b2t would finally update beyond 1.12.2 to 1.19, the latest version at the time, and alongside that, the 2b2t website was completely overhauled and changed. This was great news, right? Players had been waiting for half a decade at that point for the server to update, and it was finally here. Well, not exactly. Perplexing to the players were certain decisions made by Hausemaster that came with this update, including a soft item economy reset where certain items were removed with the intent of making players work to obtain them again.
Hausemaster claims that duplication exploits have caused significant damage to the server, and that these items were to be reduced or removed to soften future impact upon 1.19 and later. What do you mean damage? This is a free-for-all server, so it looks like it is against the rules to dupe on an anarchy server now. The decision to add this rule and reset all those items is absolute insanity. 2b2t is supposed to be the server that never resets, as it says right here. Yet the server had a reset. Now here's my response to all of this. I'm not mad that a significant amount of my items are gone, or my ability to trace down chunk trails is now a thing of the past. The problem is that this sets an extremely dangerous precedent for 2b2t's future. The server has had a very long track record, over a decade of never resetting the map, and only intervening on specific cases when absolutely necessary. This update completely throws that idea to the ground. I can no longer trust 2b2t in that regard.
Alongside the item reset, old chunks were supposedly going to be trimmed or removed, and a variety of additional rules were now listed on the new website, even including an anti-X-ray. All of these changes seem to go completely against the core principles of what an anarchy server was, and what made 2b2t so famous in the first place. And it was bizarre that Hausemaster, who had allegedly been the one in control of the server all this time, somehow thought these changes were good to make. Due to the backlash, House would walk back many of the changes and apologize, and even on Reddit, players would begin speculating that this was not the original House in control anymore. Additionally, the new website had other interesting information, such as how on the About page, it now stated 2b2t is hosted and developed by a small team. Then later on, after attention was brought to this fact, the page was edited to mention the founder and owner is Hausemaster, also known as Hausemaster. Very interesting indeed. Players' suspicion that something had changed in terms of 2b2t ownership was now at the highest it had ever been. It just seemed like on a fundamental level, these changes came from someone who didn't understand what made 2b2t the beloved server it was, or maybe even someone who potentially just wanted to use priority queue to line their pockets. This then brings us to today, where we have the more damning evidence of 2b2t's ownership or administration not being what it seems. If you've been keeping up with 2b2t the past 1 to 2 months, you'll likely have heard of the server's many changes they've been forced to make due to Mojang enforcement, essentially resulting in its ultimate shift away from anarchy. I talk about it more in this video here, but the gist of it is, you can't even type swear words in the in-game chat or on signs, or even slightly offensive words, and builds were now being well edited out and removed by Hausemaster if deemed too offensive. Now, alongside that, you also likely would have seen the countless Reddit posts and video clips of a group rebelling against said changes, of which many seem to feature a specific name or person they were targeting. The past year or so, some interesting information has been found behind the scenes. We know that Russia and Curtis had involvement with 2b2t through the Q server, but it's common belief that Hausemaster now owns the Q himself. So by that logic, Russia and Curtis's involvement with 2b2t should now be completely null and void. Russia at this point hasn't talked about or logged into the server in almost 10 years after all. In 2022, 2b2t players came across this message from Curtis's Discord account in the Syscraft Discord server, a Discord server including Minecraft administration and server operation related discussion. Here, Curtis is referencing something to do with TheBex. TheBex being the payment processor that all Minecraft servers use, including 2b2t. In the supposed attached screenshot, we can see the text mentioning, if you have any questions, please contact 2b2t testing and provide the reference, and then the TheBex code. To be clear, TheBex is what's used to handle 2b2t subscriptions for priority queue. Why was Curtis supposedly working on the 2b2t store in queue if Hausemaster retained ownership years ago? There are other messages from Curtis too where he discussed Minecraft server related questions, and by this point Russia had sold the Archon too. Possibly the most compelling evidence is Curtis's resume he seemingly had listed on a popular job seeker website, Wellfound. Using the Wayback Machine, we can look at this resume from back in 2019 where he had operations manager at 2b2t listed, beginning in 2016 to present. Listed here were his roles, which included significantly more than just running the queue server, and as a matter of fact, it basically describes exactly what a server owner would do. Going off this information he provided alone, he essentially has full access to the server and is controlling the updates, changes, and development the server receives, as well as allegedly working with shareholders to increase sales via priority queue. In 2019, this was the only thing besides the vague online influence manager, which Curtis had listed as his current work. Now, some of this resume stuff might be drummed up BS to look good, but I'd say this is very compelling evidence that Curtis is the one making the decisions behind what does and doesn't happen on the server. Notably, his resume still exists on this website, with everything here still the same except the 2b2t part completely deleted and removed. Why has the part about 2b2t and that only been removed? Now, things get even more interesting still. While the evidence for Curtis's much greater involvement, if not at this point actual full control over the server, is now clear, what's a bit more unclear is why the Camping Russia is still connected to the server and had been added to the private direct Discord support channel for TheBex in the TheBex Discord. We obviously can't see the channel, but here a player has used Better Discord or a similar third-party Discord tool, which allows you to see private channels of a server and who has access to them, and this screenshot was also taken as of only a month or two ago. This would imply that Russia is still somehow involved with the server too, although his role is much less clear. Now, assuming all the evidence in this video is true, which remember, everything here is still alleged and not confirmed, it begs the question, why? Why hide the fact that 2b2t was no longer owned by its original creator, and even go further to pretend he is still running everything? There's nothing wrong with 2b2t being sold after all, it's only strangely deceptive to not be transparent with the community about it. Believe it or not, transparency is something the 2b2t community has been complaining about for some time in regards to Hausemaster's communication, where communication only ever seems to occur after significant backlash, as we've outlined in this video. Furthermore, the changes to the 2b2t queue and queue slots on the server, plus the strange language in which Curtis used to reference his operations of the queue on his resume, only seem to give more credence to the argument that the queue isn't only in place to prevent the server from being overwhelmed, but also to generate significant revenue. This is something I also went briefly into detail on in this video here, but the gist of it is, recent changes to the 2b2t queue almost halved the number of non-priority queue slots on the server, pushing queue times up for non-paying players to as high as 2 days. 2 full days just to get into the server. The highest the 2b2t queue time has probably ever seen, despite the server having more player slots than ever, rendering the server completely unplayable for non-paying players. The final part I'll mention is simply my theory and shouldn't be taken at face value, but I truly believe that the Camping Russia either did end up purchasing the server or maybe even purchased a stake in the server at some point. Maybe not when he was making videos on it, but sometime a bit later even. And clearly, the original Hausemaster or whoever became House in 2016 is no longer the one primarily running the server, if he still even owns it at all. Regardless, this is the evidence I have presented. Be your own judge, be sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching.